How did Hollywood turn famous heroes, trusted franchises, and giant budgets into a trail of empty seats? 2023 was supposed to prove theaters were fully back, yet several studios spent fortunes on movies audiences simply refused to treat as events. Some failures were quiet, others became public embarrassments, and number 3 was stranded after its original studio collapsed. Before we begin, like this video, share it with another movie fan, and subscribe to our channel. Number 20. The Machine. Turning a famous comedy routine into a full theatrical adventure sounded easy, until audiences were asked to buy tickets for a story many had already heard online. Bert Kreischer plays an exaggerated version of himself, a loud comedian whose reckless college trip to Russia returns to punish him decades later. A criminal named Irina kidnaps Bert and his distant father Albert, forcing both men back to Russia to locate a valuable watch stolen during Bert's wild youth. The signature sequence recreates the train robbery behind Kreischer's best-known routine. Young Bert drinks with gangsters, believes he has become their friend, and cheerfully helps them take valuables from passengers. He repeatedly announces himself as the Machine, unaware that his foolish performance will become family history for dangerous people. The scene mixes crime, embarrassment, and physical comedy, while explaining why present-day Bert is suddenly dragged into a mess he barely remembers. On paper, the movie had an audience. Kreischer could sell live tickets, attract podcast listeners, and turn a personal story into a recognizable brand. The trouble was scale. A joke built for a stage was stretched into an action comedy involving gang rivalries, family wounds, gunfire, and sentimental reconciliation. Viewers who loved the routine did not necessarily want a feature-length sequel to it, while viewers unfamiliar with Bert had little reason to care. Number 19. Big George Foreman. An extraordinary true story entered theaters with almost no sense of urgency, and that may have been its biggest opponent. The film follows George Foreman from a troubled childhood to Olympic glory, heavyweight fame, spiritual rebirth, financial disaster, and one of the most unlikely comebacks in sports history. Chris Davis plays Foreman as a man whose anger first gives him power, then leaves him searching for a different purpose. One of the strongest scenes comes when Foreman returns to boxing after years away. He is older, heavier, and treated like a joke by commentators who believe the comeback is only about money. Instead of hiding his age, the film makes it part of the suspense. Foreman absorbs punches, studies his opponents, and relies on patience rather than the explosive speed of his youth. That journey leads to the Michael Moorer fight, where one perfectly timed right hand changes the mood of the entire arena. Foreman's life contains poverty, fame, loss, faith, betrayal, humor, and redemption. The problem was convincing audiences that they needed another long sports biography in theaters. The movie also carried a title so long that it felt like a full summary before the trailer even began. It arrived with limited cultural conversation and little international pull. Reported production spending reached roughly $32 million, while worldwide ticket sales remained below $6 million. Even before advertising, the result was severe. A movie designed to celebrate a champion became one of the year's most overlooked releases. Foreman won his final cinematic fight emotionally, but at the box office, the bell rang before most viewers had entered the building. If you enjoy discovering how promising movies became expensive Hollywood warnings, subscribe and turn on notifications. And tell us in the comments which 2023 failure surprised you most. Number 18. Knights of the Zodiac. A worldwide anime brand received a live-action Hollywood treatment, yet the movie seemed caught between loyal fans and new viewers. The story centers on Seiya, a young street fighter searching for answers about his missing sister. After discovering a hidden power inside himself, he learns that he is destined to become the Pegasus Knight and protect Sienna, the human form of the goddess Athena. The scene built to sell the entire film arrives when Seiya accepts his identity and summons the Pegasus armor. Energy wraps around his body, metallic pieces form across his chest and limbs, and an ordinary fighter becomes a cosmic warrior. The movie then sends him into aerial combat, filled with glowing attacks, collapsing structures, and mythology that longtime followers recognize from Saint Seiya. For newcomers, however, the story introduces reincarnated gods, armored protectors, secret organizations, family betrayals, and ancient destiny at a pace that can feel more confusing than exciting. For established fans, major changes to characters and mythology made the adaptation feel less faithful than expected. That is the danger of adapting a property with decades of history. Simplifying it may frustrate devotees, but preserving everything may overwhelm everyone else. The reported budget was around $60 million, yet worldwide box office reached only several million. Its domestic opening barely crossed $1 million, giving the planned franchise almost no room to grow. Visual effects attempted to suggest a much larger universe, but the audience never formed around it. Number 17. Renfield. Giving Dracula's exhausted assistant his own movie was a clever idea, but the release became a difficult creature to market. Nicholas Hoult plays Renfield, a servant who has spent generations finding victims for his master, while slowly losing his own identity. In modern New Orleans, he joins a support group for people trapped in unhealthy relationships, and begins to understand that his immortal boss is not merely demanding. He is controlling every part of Renfield's existence. The most memorable scenes belong to Nicolas Cage, who treats Dracula like ancient royalty, wounded celebrity, and a furious employer. When he enters the support meeting, his burned appearance, sharp smile, and theatrical voice immediately change the film's energy. Another standout sequence turns a restaurant confrontation into a fast comic battle, with Renfield using supernatural strength in exaggerated ways, while innocent people stare in disbelief. That mixture was also the marketing problem. The film was partly a monster comedy, partly an action movie, partly a gangster story, and partly a satire about escaping emotional control. Horror fans expecting a dark Dracula tale received bright action and jokes. Comedy viewers saw advertising filled with blood and monsters. General audiences may have understood the concept, but still decided it could wait for home viewing. The production budget was reported at around $65 million, with some estimates higher, while worldwide earnings reached only about $26 million. Once promotional spending and theater shares were included, Universal had little chance of theatrical profit. Number 16. Guy Ritchie's The Covenant. Strong reviews and an emotional story could not rescue a war drama that many moviegoers never realized was playing. Jake Gyllenhaal stars as Sergeant John Kinley, an American soldier in Afghanistan who works with local interpreter Ahmed. After an attack destroys their unit and leaves Kinley badly wounded, Ahmed carries him across hostile territory, risking his own life and the safety of his family. The defining passage follows Ahmed's slow journey through mountains, roads, and abandoned buildings. Kinley cannot walk, so Ahmed drags him on a rough cart while armed fighters search nearby. The film replaces conventional action excitement with exhaustion. Every hill feels impossible. Every passing vehicle might expose them. The silence makes Ahmed's loyalty more powerful than any speech. Back in the United States, Kinley learns that Ahmed has not received the promised visa protection. Haunted by the debt, he returns to Afghanistan to find the man who saved him. This second half turns gratitude into action and asks whether a promise means anything when institutions fail to keep it. It reportedly cost $55 million and earned about $21 million worldwide. Its title did not clearly explain the plot, and adding the director's name may have suggested a faster, more playful crime film than the serious drama audiences received. Competition and limited promotion also pushed it out of public conversation. Number 15. Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken. DreamWorks introduced a new heroine, a hidden underwater kingdom, and a family secret, then revealed so much in the advertising that audiences had few surprises left. Ruby is a shy teenager, living among humans with one strict rule from her mother: never enter the ocean. After breaking that rule to save a classmate, she discovers that her family belongs to a royal line of giant krakens. Her transformation during the school event is the movie's biggest visual moment. Water surrounds Ruby, her body grows far above the buildings, and the awkward girl who wanted to remain unnoticed becomes impossible to hide. The scene captures the central idea clearly. Ruby is frightened not because she lacks power, but because becoming herself may separate her from the ordinary life she wants. The story then introduces Chelsea, a popular new student who appears friendly but is secretly a mermaid. The film reverses the traditional image of graceful mermaids and frightening sea monsters, presenting krakens as protectors while making the charming mermaid the threat. It is a playful idea, although the trailers openly exposed Chelsea's role and weakened the mystery. Released during a crowded summer, the movie earned roughly $46 million worldwide, against a reported budget near $70 million. Families had other choices, and the film lacked the established characters that usually help animation break through. Its domestic opening was among the weakest in DreamWorks history. Number 14. The Color Purple. Prestige, beloved source material, famous producers, and powerful performances created the appearance of a safe holiday success. The musical adaptation follows Celie, a woman separated from her sister and forced into years of mistreatment before friendship, music, and self-respect help her reclaim control of her life. Fantasia Barrino brings vulnerability and strength to Celie, while Danielle Brooks gives Sophia a forceful presence that changes every scene around her. The dinner table confrontation provides the film's emotional release. After spending much of her life afraid to speak, Celie finally stands before Mr. and announces that she is leaving. Her words carry years of pain, but the scene is not only about anger. It is about a person realizing that survival is no longer enough. The music expands that private decision into a declaration of freedom. Another memorable moment comes through Sophia, whose confidence first appears impossible to break. When hardship changes her, the difference is painful, because the audience remembers the energy she once brought into every room. These scenes earned praise and awards attention. The financial story was less hopeful. The budget was reported around $90 to $100 million, while worldwide box office remained below $70 million. The Christmas opening was strong, but attendance fell sharply after the first rush. International sales were limited, and some advertising did not clearly communicate that this version was a full musical. Number 13. Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. People who saw this fantasy adventure often praised its humor and heart, making its weak financial result one of the year's most painful missed opportunities. Chris Pine plays Edgin, a charming thief who escapes prison with warrior Holga and assembles an unusual team. Their goals are to recover Edgin's daughter, steal a magical object, and stop a powerful enemy who has taken control of their home. The cemetery sequence became an instant favorite. The team brings dead warriors back temporarily and may ask each one only 5 questions. Poor wording wastes opportunities. Corpses become irritated, and a serious investigation turns into a comedy about people misunderstanding simple rules. The timing feels like friends playing a tabletop game and arguing over decisions. Another standout scene features an overweight dragon rolling through underground tunnels. Instead of presenting a majestic creature, the movie creates a dangerous obstacle that is also visually ridiculous. That balance between adventure and comedy gives the film its personality without mocking the fantasy world itself. The problem was the price. A reported budget near $150 million meant the film required enormous global turnout. It earned around $208 million worldwide, which sounds respectable until theaters keep their share and marketing expenses are added. Memories of earlier failed adaptations may also have weakened trust in the title. Number 12. Blue Beetle. A warm, family-centered superhero story arrived inside a cinematic universe that audiences already knew was being replaced. Zolo Maridueña plays Jaime Reyes, a recent graduate who returns home expecting opportunity and instead finds his family struggling. A mysterious alien device called the Scarab chooses him, attaches to his body, and creates a powerful blue suit he cannot fully control. The transformation scene immediately shows the film's playful tone. Jaime is surrounded by relatives when the Scarab suddenly activates, tears through the house, carries him toward space, and forms armor around him. Unlike heroes who protect their identities for half a movie, Jaime has an entire family watching from the beginning. Their panic, arguments, and loyalty become the emotional center of the story. Later, Jaime learns that the suit can create almost anything he imagines. The final battle is not only about defeating Victoria Cord and her weapons. It is about rejecting the anger that might turn Jaime into the kind of person she expects him to become. His family participates directly, making the climax feel more personal than another anonymous citywide fight. It reportedly cost between $105 and $120 million and earned around $130 million worldwide. That was nowhere near enough after promotion and theatrical splits. The actors' strike also prevented the cast from doing normal publicity, while knowledge of DC's coming reboot made the release feel temporary. Number 11. Shazam: Fury of the Gods. The first Shazam movie had charm, humor, and the novelty of a child transforming into an adult superhero. The sequel returned with more characters, more creatures, and a much weaker sense that audiences were waiting. Billy Batson and his foster siblings now operate as a superhero family, but their rescues are uncoordinated, and Philadelphia sees them as unreliable. The collapsing bridge sequence introduces that problem. Cars slide toward danger while each family member uses a different power to save civilians. They prevent a disaster, yet the rescue looks messy enough to create public criticism. The scene should establish a lovable team still learning, but it also reflects the movie itself, many moving parts competing for attention. The Daughters of Atlas soon trap the city beneath a magical dome and release mythological creatures. Billy faces a dragon in the final battle, choosing to protect his family even when he believes the decision will cost him everything. A surprise appearance tries to connect the ending to the wider DC world, but by release time, that world was already headed toward a reset. With a reported budget near $125 million, the sequel earned only around $134 million worldwide. Its domestic opening was far below the original, and weak reviews reduced the chance of recovery. Viewers had already seen several confusing changes in DC leadership, and may have felt no need to invest in another story with an uncertain future. Number 10. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. 5 years after the first Aquaman crossed $1 billion worldwide, its sequel arrived as the final release from a universe that had already announced its own replacement. Jason Momoa returns as Arthur Curry, now balancing fatherhood, marriage, kingship, and another attack from Black Manta. To stop the new threat, Arthur must free his imprisoned brother Orm and form a partnership neither man wants. Their escape and journey create the movie's most entertaining material. Arthur treats danger casually, while Orm remains proud, formal, and irritated by nearly everything his brother does. They cross strange lands, fight unusual creatures, and slowly move from enemies toward competitive siblings. The humor works because it grows from their different personalities, rather than stopping the story completely. The Black Trident connects Manta to a frozen ancient kingdom, where an old force manipulates his need for revenge. The final battle asks Arthur and Orm to cooperate, while the larger story repeats the franchise's themes of family, responsibility, and unity between worlds. Worldwide box office reached roughly $440 million. Beside many films on this list, that total appears strong. The problem was a reported production budget above $200 million, expensive delays, and a major marketing campaign. It also earned less than half of the original movie's total. Number 9. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. Marvel promoted its smallest hero into the opening act of a much larger saga, then discovered that bigger scale did not automatically create bigger excitement. Scott Lang, Hope Van Dyne, Cassie, Hank, and Janet are pulled into the quantum realm, where hidden civilizations live under the control of Kang. Scott's main goal is simple: protect his daughter and recover the years he lost with her. The probability storm sequence offers the film's smartest visual idea. Thousands of possible Scotts appear, each representing a different choice he might make. At first they fight and panic, but when Cassie is threatened, every version shares the same purpose. They form a living tower, lifting one another toward the machine Scott must reach. The scene turns a strange scientific concept into a statement about fatherhood. The final fight presents Kang as a conqueror feared across realities. Yet his defeat involves advanced ants and a physical struggle with Scott, leaving some viewers unsure whether Marvel's new central villain felt powerful enough. The movie also shifted Ant-Man away from small-scale crime comedy into a digital world filled with exposition. It opened strongly, then suffered a historic second weekend drop for the franchise. Worldwide earnings reached about $476 million, but production spending had grown enormously, with later reports placing the net cost far above earlier estimates. Promotion added even more pressure. Number 8. Expend 4 Beals. A franchise built on the pleasure of seeing action legends together returned after almost a decade, but much of the original excitement had disappeared. Jason Statham's Lee Christmas joins Barney Ross and a new version of The Expendables for a mission involving stolen weapons, a mysterious criminal, and a plan that could trigger an international crisis. The opening twist appears to remove Barney from the story after a plane goes down. Christmas refuses to accept the official version and begins investigating on his own. His search eventually leads to a cargo ship, where the film delivers its largest action sequence. He races a motorcycle toward the vessel, uses the environment as a ramp, and launches into a battle filled with explosions and close combat. The series once sold itself through an almost impossible gathering of famous names. By the fourth movie, several major veterans were gone. Stallone had limited screen time, and the newer cast did not create the same nostalgic pull. The digital effects also looked weaker than audiences expected from a production carrying a reported $100 million budget. Worldwide earnings reached only around $51 million. The domestic opening was the lowest in the franchise, and poor reviews removed any hope of strong word of mouth. A property once built as a celebration of theatrical action now felt like a continuation made because the brand still existed, not because audiences demanded another chapter. Number 7. The Creator. Original science fiction is often praised in theory, yet audiences did not appear in large enough numbers when Hollywood finally offered an ambitious new world. Set during a future conflict between humans and advanced artificial intelligence, the story follows Joshua, a former soldier sent to locate a weapon said to be capable of ending humanity. He discovers that the weapon is actually Alfie, a childlike artificial being with unusual power. The film's most striking scenes reveal enormous machines moving across landscapes inspired by Southeast Asia. One sequence shows a giant military platform scanning villages with a bright beam before destruction follows. The scale feels expensive, but director Gareth Edwards achieved much of it with a reported budget near $80 million, far lower than many franchise blockbusters. Emotionally, the movie depends on the bond between Joshua and Alfie. He begins by viewing the child as part of a mission, then gradually sees a person capable of fear, loyalty, and sacrifice. Their journey leads toward Nomad, the human weapon hanging above Earth, where Joshua must choose between orders and the life standing beside him. Critics often admired the visual craft while questioning familiar story ideas and uneven character development. The release also faced a difficult challenge. It had no established brand, no famous superhero, and no simple message beyond a serious conflict about artificial intelligence. Curiosity did not become urgency. Number 6. Haunted Mansion. Disney possessed a famous theme park attraction, a recognizable cast, and a supernatural family adventure that seemed designed for autumn. Then the studio released it in July, directly after the cultural explosion surrounding Barbie and Oppenheimer. Lakeith Stanfield plays Ben, a grieving astrophysicist recruited to help a mother and son escape a mansion filled with ghosts. The stretching room sequence recreates one of the attraction's best-known illusions. Walls rise, portraits appear to change, and the trapped characters search for an exit while the room becomes increasingly impossible. For longtime Disney fans, the scene provides the visual references they expected. For the story, it proves that the mansion can alter reality and turn every familiar space into a trap. The Hatbox Ghost is eventually revealed as the force manipulating the spirits. He uses grief, loneliness, and regret to control people, making Ben especially vulnerable. The final confrontation, therefore, becomes more than a ghost removal. Ben must accept his loss without allowing it to define the rest of his life. The production budget was reported near $150 million, while worldwide ticket sales reached only around $118 million. Later, industry estimates placed Disney's net loss near $117 million after expenses and later revenue were considered. Those numbers made the scheduling decision look even worse. Number 5. Napoleon. Apple and Sony mounted a giant historical epic around one of the most famous military leaders in history, but the theatrical campaign faced a basic question. How much of its enormous cost could cinemas realistically recover? Joaquin Phoenix plays Napoleon Bonaparte as an ambitious, awkward, jealous, and often emotionally distant man, while Vanessa Kirby's Josephine becomes the personal force he cannot fully control. The battle sequences display the movie's scale. At Austerlitz, Napoleon draws opposing forces onto frozen ground, then orders cannons to break the ice beneath them. The scene is staged as cold calculation, rather than heroic celebration. Soldiers move like pieces on a board, while Napoleon watches the plan succeed from a distance. Another famous moment shows his forces firing toward the pyramids during the Egyptian campaign. The image is designed for trailers, even though historians debated several choices throughout the movie. Ridley Scott presents history with spectacle, dark humor, and a focus on Napoleon's unstable relationship, rather than a complete account of every campaign. The reported production budget reached as high as $200 million. Worldwide box office finished around $222 million. Under a normal theatrical model, that would be a serious loss, because cinemas keep part of ticket revenue, and global marketing adds tens of millions more. Apple, however, also valued the film as a future streaming attraction, making its final business result harder to measure than a traditional studio release. Even with that qualification, its cinema run did not match the spending. The movie was too costly to be saved by respectable international sales. Napoleon conquered much of Europe on screen, but he could not conquer the financial rule every epic eventually faces. Giant armies, detailed sets, famous stars, and long-running times require an audience large enough to justify them. Number 4. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. The final adventure of one of cinema's greatest heroes looked like a guaranteed worldwide event until its enormous cost turned success into an almost impossible target. Harrison Ford returns as an older Indiana Jones, preparing for retirement and feeling left behind by a changing world. His goddaughter Helena pulls him into a search for Archimedes' dial, an object connected to hidden openings in time. The opening sequence recreates a younger Indy during the Second World War. He escapes execution, fights across a moving train, and attempts to recover stolen historical objects. Digital work places Ford's familiar younger face into a massive action scene, immediately showing where a large part of the budget went. The strangest and most memorable development arrives in the finale. Indy, Helena, and the villain Voller travel through a time opening, expecting one destination, but arriving during the siege of Syracuse. Ancient soldiers look upward at the impossible aircraft, while Indy realizes that he is standing inside the history he spent his life studying. Tired and emotionally lost, he considers staying there. That personal idea gives the ending meaning, but it could not solve the commercial problem. Production spending was reported near $300 million after delays and complicated filming. Worldwide earnings reached around $384 million, a total that would be impressive for a moderately priced adventure, but disastrous for one of the most expensive movies ever made. Number 3. Hypnotic. The headline says Number 3 bankrupted the studio, but the accurate story is more revealing than a simple accusation, and far more complicated. Robert Rodriguez's Hypnotic was developed as a major project for Solstice Studios, a young company that wanted to compete through star-driven theatrical movies. By the time the film finally reached cinemas, Solstice had laid off most of its staff, lost its distribution ability, and effectively disappeared. The movie was not proven to be the single legal cause of bankruptcy, but it became the expensive project left behind by a collapsing studio. Ben Affleck plays Detective Danny Rourke, who is haunted by the disappearance of his daughter. During a bank robbery, he encounters a mysterious man capable of controlling people's perceptions. Ordinary citizens suddenly behave like weapons, locations change without warning, and Danny begins to question whether anything around him is real. The rooftop sequence shows the film's central trick. Buildings appear to bend, streets shift, and the environment folds into impossible shapes, while Danny tries to escape. Later revelations suggest that much of his reality has been constructed to test or control him. The plot keeps replacing one explanation with another, until the search for his daughter becomes part of a larger government program. The film reportedly cost around $65 million, although some estimates varied, and earned only about $16 million worldwide. Ketchup Entertainment eventually handled the United States release, after Solstice could no longer do so. That distribution history made the failure feel like an ending, rather than a beginning. Number 2. The Flash. Warner Bros. Repeatedly presented this superhero adventure as an extraordinary achievement, but years of delays, off-screen controversy, changing leadership, and unstable franchise plans created a storm no marketing campaign could outrun. Ezra Miller plays Barry Allen, who discovers that moving faster than light allows him to enter the past. He decides to prevent his mother's death, even after being warned that changing one moment can damage everything around it. Barry's choice creates a world without the heroes he expects. He meets a younger version of himself, finds Michael Keaton's retired Batman, and helps rescue Supergirl. Keaton's return supplies the movie's strongest nostalgic pull. His entrance, suit, cave, vehicles, and familiar attitude briefly make the film feel like the major event Warner Bros. Promised. The largest sequence places two Barrys, Batman and Supergirl, against General Zod's forces. Barry repeatedly attempts to change the outcome, only to discover that some events cannot be repaired through speed. The visual idea of time collapsing around him should provide tragedy, yet uneven effects became one of the most discussed parts of the release. The movie cost around $200 million before a huge worldwide campaign. It earned roughly $270 million, far below the level required for profit. Later industry estimates placed the studio's net loss near $155 million. The damage was also symbolic. The Flash included multiple famous heroes, decades of references, and promises about reshaping the DC universe. Number 1. The Marvels. Only a few years earlier, the Marvel name made almost every connected movie feel essential. The Marvels proved that era had changed. Carol Danvers, Monica Rambeau, and Kamala Khan discover that using their powers causes them to exchange locations. Every fight becomes a chaotic puzzle, because one hero may suddenly appear inside another hero's danger. The first major switching sequence demonstrates the idea with energy. Kamala fights inside her family home. Monica is near a space station, and Carol is investigating a distant location. They trade places repeatedly, while confused relatives run through damaged rooms and objects fly around them. The scene is playful, fast, and built around personalities rather than anonymous destruction. Another memorable section takes the heroes to a planet where people communicate through song. Carol's unexpected royal connection turns the film into a colorful musical for several minutes. Later, an evacuation involving alien cats provides another unusual comic sequence. These moments show a movie willing to become strange, but they also made the tone difficult to explain in advertising. The larger obstacle was homework. Understanding every relationship benefited from knowledge of earlier Marvel films and streaming series. Casual viewers could follow the basic story, yet many no longer felt the reward was worth the effort. The actors' strike also limited normal promotion during a crucial release period. Reported net production spending reached roughly $270 million, and worldwide box office stopped near $206 million. Later industry analysis estimated Disney's loss around $237 million, making it the year's biggest widely reported studio loss. Which failure shocked you most? Marvel's historic collapse, DC's expensive farewell, or Hypnotic surviving longer than the studio created to release it. 2023 proved that famous characters, giant budgets, and aggressive marketing could no longer force audiences into theaters. A movie still needed urgency, trust, and a reason to be seen immediately. Share your biggest surprise in the comments, like the video, and subscribe for more stories about Hollywood's greatest hits, forgotten failures, and costly mistakes studios would rather leave buried.